Andrew, a young and slippery career climber, jumped to his feet at once. He pulled several large bills from his designer wallet, $100, $200, $300. That was enough money for Michael's family to survive for half a year. With a disgusted smirk, Andrew tossed the bills onto the table in front of Alex as if throwing a bone to a dog. "Take it, kid," he said lazily. "Today is your lucky day. Buy yourself a new life and disappear." The bills landed beside the plate. The wind stirred them gently. Helen watched the boy closely. She expected to see greed. She expected him to grab the money and run, just like every other beggar before him. She wanted to see that greed, to prove her belief that every human being was for sale and that nothing sacred existed in this world. But Alex didn't even glance at the money. His gaze didn't drop for a second. He continued staring straight into Helen's eyes, and what she read there was not resentment, nor anger. It was disappointment. Like a teacher watching a student fail yet another simple test. "I don't need your paper," he said calmly, his voice cutting through the wind. "I can't feed my dogs with it. They need meat. And you need legs. That's a fair exchange. Goods for goods. No charity." Boris, the head of security, couldn't take it anymore. A massive man with a bull's neck, used to solving problems with his fists, he hated seeing some street rat speak to his employer in that tone. "That's enough of this circus," he growled, rising from his seat. His shadow fell over the boy. "Listen, puppy. You have 3 seconds to disappear before I break your spine." Boris stepped forward, his huge hand reaching toward Alex's shoulder. "Stop." Helen's scream cracked like a whip. Boris froze. His hand hovered an inch away from the boy's filthy t-shirt. He looked at his mistress in disbelief. "Helen Viktorovna," his mocking. "I said sit down. And keep your mouth shut." Her voice carried the same steel that once made corporate boards tremble. "No one touches him without my order." She didn't understand herself anymore. Logic told her to throw this insolent brat out. Pride demanded punishment. But her intuition, the same animal instinct that once helped her build an empire, whispered, "Wait. There's something here." He's not lying. She had seen his eyes. There was no fear of Boris. No interest in her money. Only strength. A strength that she no longer had. Silence fell. Seconds stretched like hours. Far away, a car engine hummed. Helen's heart hammered in her chest. She searched the boy's face for the tiniest hint of deceit, a twitch of the lips that would expose a joke. There was none. Alex's face was serious, almost solemn. "Do you understand what you're suggesting?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "Doctors said my spinal cord is torn. It can't be repaired." "Doctors fix the body," Alex replied. "I'm talking about the brain. Your brain forgot how to command your legs. It turned them off, like turning off the lights in an empty room to save power. I know how to flip the switch back on." His words sounded absurd, yet disturbingly logical. Helen inhaled deeply. She had nothing left to lose. Absolutely nothing. She was already at the bottom. "All right," she said quietly. "The steak is yours." She took a fork and pushed the plate toward the edge of the table with her own hand. "Take it, but listen carefully, boy. If we go to my house and you turn out to be insane or a fraud, I won't simply throw you out. I'll call the police and tell them you stole my wallet. You'll go to juvenile prison. Are you ready to risk your freedom for a piece of meat?" It was a terrifying threat. But Alex didn't even blink. He pulled a wrinkled but clean plastic bag from his pocket. Calmly, without rushing, he placed the piece of steak into it, added a few potatoes and a chunk of bread, and tied the bag shut. "I'm not afraid of prison," he said, tucking the bag into his pocket. "I'm afraid of living a useless life. Let's go. Your house will do." The ride to Helen's mansion took 30 minutes. Normally, she would spend that time checking emails, scolding subordinates, or planning deals. But today she sat motionless, staring out the tinted window of the Maybach. Next to her, on the beige leather seat, sat Alex. The contrast was surreal, his dirty, torn jeans against the luxurious interior worth a fortune. He pressed his hand against the pocket holding the food, as though afraid someone might take it away. He looked out the window with interest, but didn't ask childish questions, didn't touch any buttons, didn't try to play music. He carried himself with a dignity Helen rarely saw even in grown men. She watched him secretly. Who is he? Where did he come from? Why is he so confident? And why, for God's sake, did I agree to this madness? I've lost my mind, she thought. I'm just a desperate cripple who believed in a fairy tale. Yet every time she glanced at his calm profile, her doubts retreated. There was something unsettlingly peaceful about him, something she lacked. The cab braked at the wrought iron gates of her estate. Security let them through. Boris got out first, retrieved the wheelchair from the trunk, unfolded it, and, with his usual humiliating efficiency, lifted Helen into it. She adjusted the blanket over her legs. She hated this moment, the moment she stopped being a powerful woman and became a helpless burden. She expected Alex to stare with pity or curiosity, but he was already at the entrance, examining the house. "To the office," he commanded, without looking back. "Big windows. Lots of light. We need light." The servants at the entrance froze, stunned. Their mistress, who usually demanded perfection, had brought home a filthy boy from the street. The butler, Henry, approached with a wrinkled nose. "Madam, should I call the sanitation service? This young man smells." Helen glanced at Alex. Yes, he smelled like the street, but today that scent reminded her of something she no longer dared to feel: hope. "No, Henry," she snapped. "Bring us water. No interruptions. No calls, no visitors. Even if a war starts, I'm not home." They entered the vast office lined with mahogany. Alex shut the door, right in Boris's face, and the lock clicked. They were alone. Helen sat in the center of the room in her golden wheelchair. Alex faced her. "Well," Helen said, trembling inside, "we're here. You have the food. I upheld my part of the deal. Now it's your turn. Show me a miracle, boy." Alex placed his old backpack on the floor and slowly unzipped it. Helen tensed. What was inside? Drugs? A weapon? Instead, he pulled out a peculiar set of items: a small rubber hammer, a collection of long thin needles like those used for sewing, and an old leather-bound book. He approached Helen. "This will hurt," he warned. "Not physically. Emotionally. You'll have to take off your armor." "Start," she whispered. Alex opened the worn book. The pages were yellow, filled with tight handwriting and sketched diagrams. "This is my father's journal," he said, gently stroking the cover. "Cases medicine gave up on. He called it awakening. He believed the body is a machine, and the brain is the driver. If the driver gets scared or tired and closes his eyes, the machine stops, even if the engine still works." Helen listened with disbelief. "My spine is broken, boy. That means the wires are cut. The signal won't go through." "The wires can be restored," Alex objected. "Or we can lay new pathways. The brain is plastic. But first, we need to check whether the driver is still alive." He picked up a rubber reflex hammer. "I'm going to hit your knee hard. You must not simply wait for the blow. You must imagine your leg jerking. You must see it in your mind as vividly as if it were actually happening." Helen snorted. "I've done this 1,000 times with doctors." "You did it to prove they were wrong," Alex said sharply. "Now you will do it to survive. Close your eyes." Helen closed her eyes. Darkness. The familiar cold darkness. "Imagine you're running." The boy's voice sounded right by her ear. "Don't just walk. Run. You're late for a flight, aren't you? No, you're fleeing. Wolves are chasing you. You feel their breath on your back. Your muscles are tight. You push off the ground. Your calves are burning. Run, Helen, run." A strike. Alex hit the tendon beneath her kneecap with the hammer. Helen's eyes flew open. Her leg lay motionless. No sound, no movement. A dead weight. "Nothing," she declared with bitter triumph. "I told you, you're wasting my time." Alex didn't get upset. He didn't even look surprised. "Of course nothing," he said. "Your brain built a wall. It's blocking the signal. It's afraid of pain. We have to break that wall." He set the hammer aside and picked up a long needle. Helen tensed. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to look for a living point," Alex said. "In Chinese medicine there are meridians, points where energy rises to the surface. Your legs aren't dead, Helen. They're just in a deep sleep. I need to wake them up." He sat down on the floor by her feet, took off her expensive shoes she hadn't had time to clean, then removed her silk stockings. Her feet were pale, cold to the touch, with a perfectly done pedicure nobody ever saw. Alex took the needle. "Look at me," he ordered. "Don't close your eyes. Look at your leg. You must want to feel pain. You must beg for it." He drove the needle into the pad of her big toe. Helen watched. The needle went deep. No blood, no pain. She felt like a moviegoer watching someone torture a mannequin. "Nothing," she said. Alex pulled the needle out and moved it a little higher. A prick. Nothing. Higher. The center of the soul. Nothing. An hour passed. Her entire foot was covered in punctures. Sweat beaded on Alex's forehead. His hands trembled from tension, but he didn't stop. Helen sat in her chair, and with every minute, the tiny spark of hope that had ignited in the restaurant burned out. She felt foolish again, an old woman tricked by illusions. Enough, she said tiredly. Stop this. You're just a sadist. Take your food and go. I want to drink alone. Alex raised his eyes to her. There was fury in them. You're giving up? He asked quietly. You, who built an empire. You, who destroyed competitors with a single glance. You give up before a piece of your own flesh. I'm not giving up, she shouted. I'm just being realistic. This doesn't work. It doesn't work because you don't believe, he screamed back. You sit in your golden chair and pity yourself. Oh, poor Helen. Oh, how unfair life is. You fell in love with your illness. It became your excuse. The words hit like a slap. Helen gasped with outrage. She grabbed the heavy crystal water glass from the table and raised it, ready to throw it at him. Get out, she shrieked. Get out of my house. At that exact moment, at the peak of her fury, when her whole body tensed for the throw, Alex suddenly plunged the needle with all his strength into the point between the fourth and fifth toe on her left foot. Helen froze. The glass slipped from her hand, rolled across the carpet, spilling water. She slowly looked down. Her eyes widened, pupils shrank. She felt it. It wasn't pain in the ordinary sense. It was like someone had touched her with a live electric wire. A sharp, hot, instantaneous jolt shot from her toe up her leg, straight into her brain. Ah! Escaped from her. Alex immediately pulled the needle out. He was breathing heavily. You felt it? He asked. Helen couldn't speak. She gripped the armrests so tightly her nails dug into the leather. There, she whispered, pointing with a trembling finger at her foot. There was fire. I felt fire. Alex threw the needle aside and collapsed onto his back, arms spread wide, laughing, a hysterical laugh of relief. There's a connection, he yelled at the ceiling. My father was right. The channel isn't severed. It's clogged. We broke through. Helen, we broke the wall. Helen sat still, afraid to move, terrified the sensation might vanish, that it had been a hallucination. But the ember of fire still smoldered somewhere deep in her calf. It was the most beautiful pain of her life. She looked at the boy lying on the floor, dirty, sweaty, laughing. What now? She asked. Do I stand up? Alex sat up and looked at her seriously. No, not today. Today we only found the door. Now we must find the key and open it. This was reconnaissance. The real war begins tomorrow. He stood, brushed off his knees, and began collecting his tools. I'll be here tomorrow at 6 a.m, he said matter-of-factly, like a real doctor. Be ready. We'll work until you collapse, and then a little more. Alex? Helen called as he reached for the door handle. He turned. Thank you, she said. The word cost her effort. She hadn't said it to anyone in a very long time. Alex nodded. Feed the dogs, he said. I brought the meat, but they like to know they are remembered. And he left. Helen remained alone in the enormous office. For the first time in 6 months, she didn't call Boris to wheel her to the bedroom. She sat in the darkness, gripping the armrests, trying to summon the fire in her leg again. She couldn't, but she knew it had been there. And she knew tomorrow would be a new day, the day she would begin her war. The next 2 weeks turned into an endless, exhausting marathon. Helen's luxurious mansion, once a place of rest, became a battlefield. Every morning began not with coffee, but with Alex. The boy was relentless. He gave her no discounts, ignored her complaints. He made her crawl across the carpet like a baby, pull herself up with her arms, and spend hours concentrating on a single toe. Your muscles forgot how to work, Alex repeated every time Helen collapsed again, smashing her knees bloody on the floor. You must remind them. You are the general, they are the soldiers. If the general is weak, the army dies. It was unbearable. One day, when her legs betrayed her yet again and she fell face first to the floor, unable to rise, Helen screamed. That's it. I can't do this anymore. I'm a cripple, Alex. It's over. Alex silently sat beside her and took an old photograph from his pocket, a man in a white coat. My father used to say, he whispered, the end comes only when you stop fighting. As long as you breathe, you can win. Do you want those people who are dividing your company right now to win? Do you want Andrew to laugh at you? Those words struck her harder than any pain. She remembered Andrew, her assistant, who was already trying on her chair as director. Rage filled her like fuel. She clenched her teeth, pressed her palms to the floor, and, trembling, forced herself back onto her knees. Again, she rasped. Let's do it again. But the threat did not come from pain, it came from people. Rumors about a street kid treating a millionaire reached her private physician, Dr. Lieberman. The renowned professor was furious, terrified of losing his golden mine. The office door burst open. Lieberman stood in the doorway, flanked by the head of security, Boris. What is going on here? The doctor bellowed when he saw Helen on the floor, needles sticking out of her legs. Helen Viktorovna, this charlatan is killing you. This is infection. This is a crime. Boris, throw this puppy out. Boris stepped toward Alex. The boy shrank, fear flashing in his eyes, the fear of a child facing a giant. Don't you dare. Helen's voice was quiet, but icy. Boris froze. But Helen, Lieberman began. I set out. With a brutal effort, Helen pushed herself upright against the desk. She stared at the doctor with contempt. You treated me for 6 months. You took millions and said I was hopeless. And this boy, in 2 weeks, did what you couldn't. I feel my legs, doctor. I feel pain. You're both fired. Get out of my house. Lieberman turned pale and fled. Boris followed, head bowed. Helen remained kneeling, panting. She looked at Alex. We are alone, she said. In 3 days the shareholders' meeting takes place. Andrew will try to steal my company. I must walk into that room on my own legs. Do you hear me? Walk, not roll. Alex nodded. His face hardened. Then we'll work through the nights. Until you fall, and then a little more. The day of the shareholders' meeting arrived. In the massive conference hall of a glass skyscraper, business shacks gathered. Men in expensive suits whispered, eyeing the empty chair at the head of the table. Andrew acted like the owner already. My colleagues, he began with false sorrow, Helen Viktorovna can no longer run the company. She has lost her sanity. She hired a street beggar to heal her. We must show compassion and send her to a sanatorium. I will take over management. Everyone nodded. The papers dismissing Helen were already on the table. Andrew took the pen to sign. At exactly 10 o'clock, the heavy doors of the hall swung open. Everyone turned, expecting a wheelchair. But no wheelchair entered. A black cane with a silver handle appeared first. Then Helen walked in. She was standing. Pale, sweat on her brow, every step visibly painful. Her legs trembled, but she moved, slow, steady, head held high, eyes burning straight into Andrew. Silence drowned the hall. The only sounds were her heels and the cane. Tap. Step. Tap. Step. The woman they had buried alive had risen from the ashes. Helen reached her seat. She did not sit. She gripped the table with both hands to hide the tremor in her knees. I hear, she said, her voice made of steel. You are looking for a new CEO. I am here. Any objections? Andrew staggered backwards, his face draining of color. The pen slipped from his hand. But Helen, how? He stammered. Out, she said quietly. You are fired, Andrew. And everyone who supported you, leave my building. No one dared to speak. Power had returned to its rightful owner. That evening, instead of celebrating, Helen drove to the address Alex had given her. It was a dangerous, decaying district. Her limousine stopped near a rusted garage. Inside, dim light flickered. Alex was feeding 2 old dogs the same meat he took from her house. In the corner lay a man on a makeshift bed, thin, unshaven, but with the same intelligent eyes as Alex. Who is that? Helen asked. Alex jumped up, shielding the man. Do not fear, the man croaked. I am Alex's father, Dmitry Volkov. Helen gasped. The name was legendary, a neurosurgeon who vanished after a scandal 5 years prior. Framed by rivals, stripped of his license, destroyed. Everyone thought he fled or drank himself to death. Instead, he lived here, paralyzed by depression, raising his son. He taught me, Alex said. He drew diagrams, told me where to press, what to say to make you furious so you'd fight. I was only his hands. He is the real savior. Dmitry tried to sit up. I couldn't come myself, he whispered. They wouldn't let me past your gates. I'm an outcast. But I saw your accident on the news. I knew it was psychosomatic. I knew I could help. So I sent my son. Helen looked at them, a brilliant doctor living in ruins, and his brave son, who endured humiliation for his father's sake. They saved her life for scraps while her friends betrayed her for millions. The tears she never shed even through agony, rolled down her cheeks. She took Dmitri's frail hand. "You are no outcast," she said firmly. "Starting tomorrow, you are the chief physician of my new rehabilitation clinic. I will hire the best lawyers. We will prove your innocence. We will return your license. We will return your life." She turned to Alex. "And you? You will attend the best school. You are not a janitor. You were born to be a doctor." 10 years passed. Helen recovered completely. The cane had become merely a stylish accessory. Dr. Volkov's clinic shook the world, returning hope to those abandoned by others. Alexander Dmitrievich Volkov, graduated from medical school with honors. Sometimes, sitting in her office, Helen looks at an old photograph, a dirty little boy standing before her wheelchair. She keeps it as a reminder that help comes from places you least expect, that beneath dirt may lie pure gold, and that even when the whole world says no, the faith of one child can create a miracle. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and comment the word miracle. If you believe that kindness always returns, subscribe to Grandma Annie's voice. Thank you for being with us. Get out of here, you little ragamuffin. Helena screamed, sitting in her golden wheelchair. She was the richest woman in the city, yet her legs were dead. The doctors said she would never walk again. But that filthy boy begging for scraps looked her straight in the eyes and said something that made her freeze. "Give me your food, and in 1 hour you'll stand up." She laughed right in his face, unaware that this child carried a secret worth more than all her millions. Watch till the end to witness a miracle no one could ever believe. This story didn't begin on the day the boy approached her table, but 6 months earlier, on the day that split Helena Romanova's life into before and after. That morning, she felt like the mistress of the world. Helena, owner of the largest construction empire in the country, was flying in her private helicopter to sign a $500 million contract. Forests and rivers drifted beneath her, and it seemed nothing on earth could stop her. She sipped champagne, checked documents, and planned the next 10 years of her triumphant future. But fate had other plans. A sudden screech of metal drowned out the rotors. The helicopter jerked like a wounded bird. The pilot shouted something, but Helena couldn't hear. The world spun into a wild kaleidoscope of sky and earth. A crash, darkness, silence. When she opened her eyes, she was lying among burning wreckage. She smelled burning plastic, tasted blood in her mouth, and felt a savage pain in her arm. She tried to get up, to crawl out of the flames. She commanded her legs, stand, move, run. They did not obey. She looked down. Her legs were there, intact, uncrushed, yet she felt nothing. As if her lower body belonged to someone else, a mannequin, a doll, but not her. Right there, lying on the cold ground under the rain, waiting for rescue, Helena understood. Her life was over. The next 6 months became hell. The best clinics of Switzerland, Israel, and Germany. Endless processions of world-famous professionals. MRI scans, medical councils, complex surgeries. Helena spent millions without hesitation. She was used to buying anything: land, buildings, people, laws. She believed she could buy her health too. But each time the verdict was the same. Doctors averted their eyes, hiding their helplessness behind Latin terminology, but the meaning never changed. Spinal compression fracture, ligament rupture, complete paralysis of the lower limbs. No chance. Helena returned to her hometown not as a victor, but a broken cripple. Her luxurious mansion, once her pride, became a golden cage. Stairs turned into mountains, thresholds into walls. A woman who once looked down on everyone was now forced to look at the buckles of other people's belts. Her character, already harsh, became unbearable. She fired servants for the smallest noise. She shattered mirrors so she wouldn't see herself in a wheelchair. She hated the world, but most of all she hated her legs, those useless slabs of flesh that betrayed her. On that sunny autumn day, Helena decided to go into town. The walls of her home felt suffocating. She ordered her driver and head of security, Boris, to take her to the most expensive restaurant in the city, Monarch. She wanted to prove to herself and everyone else that she was still a queen, still alive. Waiters fussed around her, moving tables aside so her massive custom-made wheelchair could pass. Guests stole quick, pitying glances at her and instantly looked away. Helena felt their pity like acid on her skin. Steak, she snapped at the waiter without even opening the menu. Rare. And your most expensive wine. She sat under the shade of a sprawling oak on the terrace. The food was flawless, the wine divine, yet she tasted nothing. Inside her was only emptiness. She poked at the meat, thinking she would give her entire fortune, every last dollar, just to stand up and take one step. One single step to the car. And then, at the peak of her despair, the bushes separating the terrace from the street parted. A boy stepped onto the perfectly manicured grass. He was no older than 12, skinny, with sharp knees sticking out of torn jeans. He wore an oversized faded t-shirt and worn-out sneakers taped together with gray duct tape. His face and hands were smudged with soot and street dust. Despite his pitiful appearance, he didn't slouch. He didn't avert his gaze. He walked toward Helena's table with the confidence of someone who owned the place. Boris, standing behind Helena, tensed instantly. His hand went to his radio. "Hey, kid," he barked. "Get lost. This is private property." The boy didn't flinch. He ignored the giant guard as if he were invisible. He approached Helena's table. A strange smell, smoke, herbs, something wild, came from him. Helena raised her cold eyes. She expected him to stretch out a filthy hand and whine, "Lady, spare some bread." She had already prepared a cruel line to crush him. But the boy stayed silent. He looked at her. His eyes were a stunning color, steel gray, shining with intelligence completely out of place for a street beggar. He glanced at her lifeless legs, then at her face, and finally at the half-eaten steak. "You're not going to finish that?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement. His voice was hoarse, yet calm. Helena was stunned by the audacity. "What?" she snapped. "The steak." He pointed a dirty finger at the meat. "You ate half. You don't need the rest. You're full. My dogs are hungry." Anger boiled inside her. How dare he? A filthy nobody telling her what she needed. "Listen to me, you little freak," she hissed. "Get out while my guard still lets you. I don't give handouts to beggars." The boy smirked, a bitter, adult smirk that made Helena fall silent. "I'm not a beggar," he said. "I'm offering a deal. Business. You're a businesswoman, right? You understand profit. A deal." Helena laughed, and her laughter was like a raven's call. "What could you possibly offer me?" "Lice." The boy stepped closer, leaned in, and looked straight into her soul. "Give me that steak," he said quietly. "Give me your scraps, and I will teach you to walk." Helena froze. Her polished silver fork slipped from her fingers and clattered on the porcelain plate. The sound seemed deafening in the sudden silence. "Teach me to walk," she whispered. The words stuck in her throat. For 6 months she had heard countless promises, shamans from Peru, Chinese acupuncturists, Japanese engineers. They all demanded millions up front. They all lied. And this child, this filthy, ragged boy, asked for leftover meat. Rage ignited in her again. This was the cruelest, most absurd joke ever played on her. Helena laughed, a terrifying, dry, hollow laugh full of pain and hatred. Guests turned their heads in fear. "You're either insane or a brilliant con artist," she spat, wiping tears of malicious laughter. "You think I'm an idiot? That I'll believe scraps are worth more than the work of the world's best neurosurgeons?" She whipped her head toward her assistant Andrew, sitting at a nearby table glued to his phone. "Andrew, give him some money and get him out of my sight."